Listen, you're in a privileged position to learn a thing or two. Keep your mouth shut and your eyes open.
You gonna bark all day,
I'm your huckleberry.
Say when.
Welcome to episode 6 of the Raft Podcast. I'm LJ.
I'm KB.
And our guest today is
Travis Ross from the Lost Cove Company.
Welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
You are just up the coast from me, so you're same time zone. We always joke that KB's on the East Coast Standard Time, so he's got like 3 hours on us. So he's been running around doing errands. We've been trying to get our first coffee in.
I'm well caffeinated and ready to go, boys.
Yeah.
I'm juicing up right now, but we're getting there.
Really quick before we jump in, I just want to start with a little intro. Travis is a phenomenal artist, and he's so talented. He's got so many different avenues of life that he's traveled down to put out so much content, so much artwork out into the community. And we're gonna dive into all that. But I did want to share funny story of how we met because I just for reference of time and space, I went on and looked at the first Instagram post of you and I remember that I posted it the next morning after we went to that event in Huntington Beach. But it was this event that was leading up to the Muse Inc. Festival. For those who don't know, it's this big music mixed with tattoo festival. It's a big carnival of crazy. But your girlfriend Bernadette was hosting this event in Huntington Beach. And I remember the whole room was just, well, the whole club was just kind of going crazy. It was one of those shots type night. And I look over and I see this dude who's, so everybody knows I don't drink, I don't party anymore. But I see this one dude who is just kind of sitting there calm while the whole rest of the club is kind of becoming a big party club. And I instantly thought, okay, this is somebody I can hang out with for the rest of the night. So I just kind of went over and planted myself over by Travis. And we're sitting there just kind of chit chatting. And Travis looks down at my hand and he sees a tattoo. And the first thing, do you remember what you said?
It's an Eno tattoo, right?
Yeah. So one of my childhood friends that I grew up with that does most of my tattoo work, my boy Eno, Travis just called it. Now keep in mind we're in a dark sort of, well, you know what a nightclub is like. It's just it's dark, shit lighting, and somehow Travis had such an eye for it that he picked Eno's work off my hand, and I'm wearing a jacket and hoodie, all that kind of stuff, and he just sees this one tattoo, and then he tells me a funny story about how he was gonna have Eno tattoo his hands. So fast forward a little bit, uh, I posted it, I tagged Travis. We ended up sort of keeping in touch, and because of my work in the recovery community, we started talking about this work that he was doing with Tribe, which we'll get to because I don't want to shortcut or cap that conversation because I think it's beautiful work. But he invites me to this event in LA. You know, I'm thinking Travis is a cool dude. Bernadette seemed cool. I'll go check this event out. It sounds interesting. It sounds like solid work that he's doing with the community. So I get up to LA and Travis's car had broken down. But at the time, Travis was living in, what was it, North Park?
Yeah.
Right. So I was already headed back that way. I was already living down that way. So it was kind of a no-brainer. It's like, well, just hop in, we'll just head back. And then we end up in typical LA traffic, which, for that amount of distance in most places in the country, it probably would have taken an hour. It took us more like 4 hours to get home. Oh, Travis stuck with this dude that he just met at this event one time. It ended up being the start of a friendship that I really value. I found out that Travis was not just a tattoo artist. He's an amazing person with a great soul. And we had a lot of the same interests, hip hop, all sorts of stuff like that. And I got to know a little bit about Travis's life story. And so when we started booking guests, Travis immediately came to mind because his story is just so rad. Where he started and where he ended up, where he is now, is just unbelievable, and some of the work that he's done along the way. So I just wanted to preface that because you were definitely one of my first choices for guests on.
I appreciate that, brother.
LJ's talked about getting you on probably before we even produced the first episode. Like, bro, I got a list of people we went on, and Travis was definitely on there. Heard a lot about you, man, so it's cool to virtually meet you. You know,
Yeah.
maybe one day I'll come over there to the West Coast and hang out with you West Coast kids.
You're gonna have to.
But one time I went over there, that traffic you were talking about, bro, my God. My cousin was stationed over there in like his Navy, so I guess it's like a little bit north of LA. I forget what the base is. But dude, he picked me up and went back to he was living on base, and we went down to Long Beach from that base. Bro, distance wise wasn't far, but no kidding. It was like 3 hours to drive like 30 miles or something. Not even.
Yeah.
At this point, Travis, you're pretty synonymous with LA, with Long Beach, but you started out just outside of Minneapolis. How did you find your way to Long Beach?
Man, it was crazy, to be honest. So I was born in Minnesota, and then like right after that, my mom and dad divorced, so she took me to Arizona for a couple years. I don't really remember much. I just remember my pops picking me up, bringing me back to Minnesota with my uncle. They drove down there and picked me up, and then we were outside of Minneapolis for about a year. And we actually moved onto a farm with my dad's ex-wife's parents. Wasn't an active farm, but they owned 100 acres in southern Minnesota on a lake. I didn't appreciate it at the time. I hated it. Like I saw some of my old friends like a year ago in Minnesota, and they were all like, "Dude, that was the best place ever." And I was like, "I know," and I hated it when I lived there. But I was the only kid running around, and I'd watch, finally MTV came out and all that stuff. And my mom moved to Vegas, so I'd start to see palm trees and stuff like that. And it's really funny because I got into Sublime like huge as at like fourth or fifth grade. And I ended up moving to my mom's in Vegas for about a year and a half, sixth and seventh grade. But I was in and out of foster care. It just wasn't it wasn't a good situation. And one day my dad calls me. I haven't talked to him in like a year and a half. And he's like, "I just moved to Long Beach, California." And in my head, I was like, "Oh, I'm so moving with you." You know what I mean? And actually, like a week later, my grandmother died. We all went up to Minneapolis to meet up. And my dad kind of found out what was going on in Vegas, and he was like, "Well, give me a couple months, and we'll figure it out. We'll get you out there, hopefully." And I went back home, and my mom started like to have a conversation that she was going to put me back into a shelter or Boys Town. And I told her, "No way, man. I'm going to Long Beach." And the next day, she packed my stuff up, and I ended up in Long Beach, California. So it was like something that at the time I manifested, but I had no clue what manifestation was or any of that. It was just I would always see California on TV and Long Beach, and listening to all the Sublime records and watching their old music videos on MTV. And next thing you know, I was skateboarding and biking through all those neighborhoods. It was crazy.
Yeah.
That's awesome. LJ was showing me a couple episodes of The Lost Cove. I heard you telling Rick Thorne about building like dirt ramps and shit in the back at the farm.
Dude, but that was my second broken wrist. So like 3 summers in a row, I broke my wrist. And wasn't the first time child service, or that was the first time child services got called, but it was like, it was actually, nothing was wrong. But first year I broke my arm on the top of the like monkey bars, I fell off. And then the second year I was watching the X Games on my little skateboard, and we'd take cinder blocks and then we dig into the dirt and put a couple cinder blocks up, put a couple boards up, and just we had like a nice little, I'd say like a 4-foot tabletop, and then like a 3-foot launch ramp. And the second day on it, endoed over the bars and broken arm all summer.
So you went from hip hop artist to tattoo artist. Where did that begin?
In all honesty, I think that, those TV shows all came out when I was like 17, 18. And so I started to see tattoo on TV, but I couldn't really draw. Tried to draw as a kid, didn't really work out. And I started doing hip hop because basketball I couldn't do anymore because I moved out of my house at 17 and had to support myself. I did a clothing company with a friend for a little bit, but things weren't working out with him. And excuse me, I had a huge musical background, and my family had a huge musical background. So I started writing lyrics and toured for like 6 months, and it started to pick up, but it just wasn't. I knew I had no control, and I don't like that. And I was getting tattooed by this guy off of Melrose, and I was complaining to him. He was like, "Why don't you start tattooing? You can tattoo on the road. You can tattoo in your home." Like, I looked at him. I was like, "I can't fucking draw, dude." And he's like, "Oh, I'll teach you how to do the Sailor Jerry stuff. It's super easy. You just trace watercolor for like 6 months to a year. Be my bitch for 2 years, and then you'll start tattooing." And somehow that equation added up in my mind at the time, even though I was broke as fuck. So yeah, dude, I just started hitting it with that, and then I eventually got an apprenticeship on Sunset Boulevard. And the history, the culture of tattooing is just so deep. And I looked at the scale of the land, and I saw that all these TV things happening, and tattoo artists were starting to make their own brands, clothing. And I was like, shit, this is all the things that I've been doing. Like, let me give this a run, So I went head first, and like I tapered off of music. I was still doing music during my apprenticeship, but it got to the point where the apprenticeship was too hectic. And the last show I did was like a house party in Long Beach, and I signed off with "Love Is What I Got," and I knew that was going to be the last time I performed. So I performed like my favorite Sublime song with all my homies and friends that went into all my shows, and I knew it. That was going to be it. So I dived full into tattooing, and it literally everything that I wanted for music or hooping has happened with tattooing. It's kind of crazy.
Wow, that's awesome. LJ showed me a bunch of your work, and I added you on Instagram, so I was following along too. And it's like, it's surprising that you said that you couldn't even draw, and then you look at your art now, and it's like, fuck. But who influenced you along the way? I guess I know, so your apprenticeship, that's like your mentor. I guess I'm not as into, I don't know the tattoo lingo like you guys, but like, who was your biggest influence along the way?
Artistically,
Yeah.
I would say at the beginning it was a guy named Josh Duffy. He's tattooed my neck. I went and got a tattoo from him right outside of my apprenticeship, but I got to meet him during the apprenticeship. He was tattooing my mentor. And they did black and gray, but they didn't do black and gray the way that he did. Like, his mom has a painting in space. She was a painter her whole life. And he was like one of the first people to take black and gray realism. And you could tell that it was him. Like, it didn't matter, what subject matter it was, a portrait of a football player, portrait of a girl, a landscape. Like, you could just tell Josh Duffy did it. And I was like, fuck, man, like, that's identity through art. You know what I mean? Like, to take something and a reference and then be able to put your own touch on it so much that people can tell that it's yours. So I was enamored by his just overall aesthetics of his tattooing. And then I got to meet him, and he was a really cool dude. And like, turns out he had apprenticed at the exact same shop I had on Sunset that I ended up quitting and going to another one. So we bonded real quickly. And at the time, he was rising to be one of the best tattoo artists in the world. So I got to watch his humble climb up and kind of be a part of his process, and watch him go from San Pedro to opening up his own shop in Peoria, Arizona. And it's called Black Castle, and it's fucking beautiful inside. And so he was definitely, I think, my main push. But like LJ said, I mean, dude, this guy Eno from fucking San Diego, he's got this one-of-a-kind artwork that grabbed my eye. And then I found out that he worked in Venice right next to me. So like, I kept finding these synchronistic connections with these artists that I really liked. Now I'm trying to make it a melting pot more than ever. Like, I'm going to try to take all these styles that I've been learning over time and make my own out of it. And it's a long process, but you'll probably start to see some snippets of it soon.
when you start diving into that tattoo community, there really are just some artists that stylistically, exactly who it is. And that's why when I think back on that first meeting, it's still impressive to me that you could figure out who did my hand in the dark by barely glancing at it. But there just are some, I mean, when I think of people, it's like when I see your stuff, I know exactly who did it. And then when you see the different styles like Eno or Adam Hawthorne or Joe Capo, you know exactly.
Adam too, like monumental for me, dude. That guy was monumental. Honky Kong, like,
Yeah.
cannot tell you how much he influenced me as just a person too with his hustle.
Donkey Kong, huh?
I'll send you a link. The dude's
Yeah.
bananas, but he just posted on Twitter an article that they did with him in the Source magazine. So that was pretty tight. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't check to see what the date was to see if it was recent. I'm pretty sure it was a recent interview, but yeah. And then they got like Mike OG or OG Mike Giant at the same shop now. It's crazy, but
Yeah,
eventually one of these days we'll have Eno on or something like that. But
yeah, that's a must.
so, what is the most challenging tattoo that you've ever done?
This Eiffel Tower. Holy shit, dude! I did this Eiffel Tower on this dude's arm. My Instagram got deleted, so I'm like slowly rebuilding it, and I don't think I reposted that one yet. But it was multiple sessions. Like every time I thought like this is the last session, it wasn't. And I finally finished it up in this hotel room in Minneapolis. And we had just gone there a week after the George Floyd stuff and had no idea downtown Minneapolis had just turned into Gotham City. And it's me and Bernadette, and we're tattooing out of this hotel room. And I finally finish it, and I remember just looking at him like, "Oh my god, dude, we're actually done." I put the white highlights in and everything, and I remember trucking through it and being like, "Dude, you're fucking up. Like, you're ruining this dude's bank account. Get this fucking tattoo done." But once it was finally done, you could see why it took me as long as it did, and I didn't see that throughout the process. And I think as artists, sometimes we get so caught up into projects and we beat ourselves up, and we're like, this is never gonna finish. And once I do, it's gonna suck. But like that was one of the tattoos that proved to me like the work you put in is the result you get.
Yeah, 100%. It's easy to get lost in any artistic process you do, to get caught up in the weeds as far as where you're at and where you want to go. I find that true with any medium that I've ever attempted. Whether it was making music. There was times when we were in the studio when I was recording hip hop, and well, you're like me too. And KB, we can all be very OCD. People like us tend to judge the shit out of our own work, and you want to nitpick, and you want to, and the problem is then you end up spending 5 weeks longer sometimes looking, and I don't mean working on it, just like looking at something that you've been working on, like what can I make better.
I gotta grab this because I've been reading this book by Rick Rubin,
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
and he taught the creative act way of being. Sorry, I almost knocked this over, but he literally talks about that. And he's like, dude, you just got to put the fucking work out, like, because otherwise, if you wait like a year or two, the work's not even gonna be valid to you anymore. You may not feel the same emotions that evoke that, and like it's about getting the work out just as much as it is the process. And I think a lot of us artists, especially tattooers, man, like I'm guilty too, but I've seen dudes pick apart their tattoo for 3 hours after they're done tattooing, eating dinner or whatever, and then they edit the photo and everything. They're like, "Fuck this shit, I'm not posting."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I do it too, like the Eiffel Tower. I think I almost posted it the other day, and then I took it down because part of it was healed in the photo, and I started nitpicking it because I started it. I went down the rabbit hole.
I think it's kind of like almost in a way, it's almost like that imposter syndrome,
Hmm.
where like everyone else sees how fantastic your work is, but you're producing it, so you just sit there and you're like, why am I here? Like I don't deserve to be here or whatever, like it's weird how we do that to ourselves, but it's wild, man.
I, I can identify that with that quite a bit, dude, because I'll jump into things like producing TV and all these things, and I get imposter syndrome a lot, and I'm like, what the fuck? Even with tattooing, like with black and gray realism, I never drew, until until I was 22. Really, like I took art classes at school, but we all took them. You know, I could draw a little ball, and that's about it. But like getting into realism too, still sometimes like, you know, I had a conversation with one of my friends, Bubba Irwin, the other day, and who's an amazing tattoo artist, won Ink Master, and he was like, "You beat yourself up all the time," and I looked at him and I was like, "You do too, motherfucker." Yeah, I do. You know, like we all kind of go through it, but I think especially people, you know, it's hard when you jump into things like this, especially with social media now and all these things. You know, to call myself a clothing designer, host of a show, an artist, still like it. I'm doing it, but sometimes I'm like, motherfucker, you ain't shit. Like you're just Travis, and you're trying some different stuff out. You know.
Yeah. On that note, what is your favorite tattoo you've ever done?
That's hard, dude. I mean, I'm coming up on 11 years, and there's some pieces that I've done that I've loved. The piece that I did, there's pieces that I've done in certain spaces. Like I got to tattoo on the canals at Amsterdam one morning at the bar owner when my dad and I were out there. So there's all these different memories of tattooing. So there's no way that I could pick one. And I'm the same way with like music and movies and all that. Like cannot pick an all-time favorite because different things evoke different emotions. But I would say tattooing as a whole just is such a honor that it's hard to pick just one of those moments in 11 years.
Sure.
Right.
You talked about the music again, and I do want to dive into that a little bit. I have a deep love for hip hop. KB loves hip hop. You obviously love hip hop as well. So you started out as a hip hop artist. What was your biggest moment? Because I know some of the stories that you told me in the car on the way back from LA to San Diego, but
Yeah.
I don't want to be the only one who gets to hear those stories.
Yeah, dude. I mean, it was like a whirlwind. Like I literally decided to make 2 tracks, and I still don't remember how it happened. But 2 weeks later, I was opening up for Dog Pound, one of their first concerts back, Pasadena, 4th of July, and like all my friends from Bubba Gumps rolled out. It was a big deal. I forgot the lyrics to one of my songs. Like was fully unprepared. But then, like everything else I do, like I just dove fully fucking in, and I immersed myself in it. You know, I was recording tracks in South Central. I was recording tracks in Long Beach in people's houses. We turned the closet into a recording studio. Whatever we had to do, you know what I mean, to get it done, which is a lot more normal now. But back then, like people still went to the studio and paid for studio time. Like all this home recording and stuff like that wasn't that big at the time, and I don't think people had the right equipment either. You know. There was that. There was, you know, I played the Whiskey a Go Go, and like walking up Sunset, and then seeing my name on that marquee was fucking insane. And opening up for Cottonmouth Kings was a whole other thing. We opened up for Mickey Avalon one night, and my buddy Quest, this other white rapper from Orange County, was not happy and had a rock star night, and we got escorted out of there for sure. um, I mean, just a bunch of crazy little stories, and like getting on stage at the Key Club, getting on stage at the Troubadour. Like I got to play some epic fucking LA venues that most people dream about, you know? And some of them were pay for play. Like I was selling tickets, so let's not get it twisted. Like
Yeah.
they weren't like, oh my God, Travis Ross has got the best single in the world. Come fucking open up for us. It was like, hey, you're a local guy. Go sell tickets for us, and you can open up. You know?
Yeah.
But there was the grind of it. I really enjoyed. I don't know what stories you may be talking about in particular, because there's a few, but that's kind of like a quick roundabout through the music life.
No, you ran through them. Well, I mean, I grew up, I love all forms of hip hop, but my heart, outside of underground hip hop or independent hip hop, my heart's always gonna sit pretty comfortably with West Coast gangster rap. I remember being a little kid skating to school with my shaved sides and my slick back hair and my flannel on and my Chucks and my Dickies, listening to Snoop Dogg. I remember, so my first album that I ever owned, first CD, I'll rephrase that because I'll date myself. We had tape cassettes, but my first CD
Yeah.
was was the Murder Was the Case soundtrack with
Mhm.
Snoop Dogg, Dog Pound, all of them. And I had to hide that in my sock drawer, right? Because my dad is he's a retired cop now, but he was a very active cop at the time. And in the early 90s, we're talking like 93, something like that. So picture just a little kid that's in third grade, which is wild because, you know, that's right around my daughter's age now. She's 9. At that age, I was skating to school with my shockproof CD Walkman player, listening to Murder Was the Case soundtrack or Doggy Style or All Eyes on Me. So I've got a deep connection with that West Coast sound because it was really what kicked off my love for hip hop entirely. Snoop Dogg was my favorite growing up. But you got to open for Dog Pound. You got to open for Daz and Corrupt. That's wild.
They had gotten back together too. Like they had been broken up for like 10, 12 years. And I think it was like the third show back. So that was like, you know, I was like, shit, I'm on the right path. 2 weeks in,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? And I'm opening up for two of the beaches like OGs, and like Long Beach birthed a lot of that. And what's funny is like, so my first two tapes, and it rings true to who I am today, was Coolio, Gangster's Paradise, and Green Day. And still to this day, I'd say, punk and hip hop. Pop punk, not as much. I got a deep love for it, but like actual punk, I grew into it. Those are still my two favorite genres, I'd say to this day. And like my dad hated when I got Coolio's Gangster Paradise, but then he was the one that told me about Tupac because Tupac was shot. He's like, oh, did you hear about one of your rappers died? And I was like, huh? And he's like, one of your rapper guys, like Tupac. And I was like, who's that? And he's like, I guess he's the best ever. And I'm not going to lie, my dad came back with the double album later that week.
Wow.
And, I got deep into Pac at a very young age.
When it's funny, Gangster's Paradise, when that came out, I remember there was a local radio station and that song was so popular, and RIP to Coolio, who just passed away recently, but that song was people don't understand, like especially younger generations. They hear that song and they heard their mom and dad play it a couple times at like a barbecue or a house party or something like that. But to be there at that time when that song hit the radio, when all those rappers were huge, you don't understand. I remember a day when I was listening to the radio and Gangster's Paradise, and that was, what was that movie that came out, Dangerous Minds, with
I think so.
Michelle Pfeiffer teaching the class, and it was basically just an updated version of that. I can't remember, Lou Diamond Phillips, where they were teaching the problem students or whatever. But
Yeah.
but anyway, but that song, I remember, I'm not even shitting you. One time they were playing the top 10 most requested songs of the day, and it was 7 out of 10 songs. Like, I'm not bullshitting. The radio station finally caved and made Gangster's Paradise 7 out of 10 that they played in a row. And that's when I knew. I was like, dude, this gangster rap stuff is just changing the whole landscape of music. It's something to pay attention to. It's wild.
I think it really was. It was the hook, dude, and that guy singing. And that's like the first time that people could really connect with hip hop that didn't. And like it was like this eerie song, but also like somehow it had this like, damn, I want to hear it again and again. It shows you that a lot of people probably weren't listening to lyrics,
Yeah.
So much, because that's a deep ass song. But what's crazy too is like, at the time my dad and I were living out on a farm in fucking Minnesota, but little did we know we were gonna end up in the middle of the hood in Long Beach. What, 10 years later?
Yeah.
Not even 8 years later. So I always think back on that and like my pops being like, what the fuck is this music and all this shit? And then we literally end up in one of the neighborhoods where that's playing out daily.
Yeah.
It's kind of cool how like location. So me being on the East Coast, my first album that I ever got, I convinced my grandma to get it for me. was the Slim Shady LP. I was like just a little white kid, grew up in a trailer park, bro. I was like, related with Eminem. I'm a little bit younger than you guys. And I remember we were leaving grandma's house and my mom's like, let's listen to that tape your grandma got you. Bro, 30 seconds in, she's like, we're going back. We're taking it back. I remember we had to take back the Slim Shady LP and I got Stankonia, that Outkast album. It's just funny, like, influence on the West Coast. That's how you guys grew up with like that gangster rap. And then mine was like a little southern, also white trash with Eminem. So it's cool how the location influences. Still, it's all hip hop, but it's just like, it's cool to hear you guys talk about it because it didn't have the same impact. I mean, Tupac did, of course. You know, everybody loved Tupac, but
What's crazy, dude, is like in high school we were all fucking on Jay-Z. We were on Mobb Deep. Like we switched it up because we heard it all the time. Diplomats was huge for our crew, bro. When that Diplomats album came out, the Cameron album, my best friend Kevin was fucking putting Louis Vuitton on Timberlands.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? He was customizing shit. It was crazy.
Capone and Noriega.
Mm-hmm.
Well, and that leads into a funny topic is, and it's kind of what KB was talking about. When you are from a certain area, you're going to be directly influenced by the genre that represents that most fully. But I think that being on the West Coast and having that constant influence in what we grew up with, I think by the time that we got to high school, because we're pretty close to the same age, but by the time that we got to high school, I think we, as much as we loved that and we had this nostalgic connection with all the West Coast stuff, I think that we were probably ready to hear something that sounded completely different. I remember the first time I heard Wu-Tang, it blew my fucking mind. Blew my mind. Wu-Tang, Nas. I just clung to whatever I could. Anything that I found. And that leads me to something that I wanted to ask you about, because as a hip hop head from Minnesota, I have to bring up Atmosphere.
Oh yeah.
So
Atmosphere is the reason I started rapping. I looked at him and I'm like, if this motherfucker could do it, I can do it too. Let's go.
I love Slug. So being somebody that lives, and we can go down that rabbit hole a little bit, but I've always been curious, but I've never asked. Being somebody that is so synonymous with LA and Long Beach at this point, but having those foundational ties to Minnesota and being such a hip hop head, when that song Say Shh came out, where he was preaching his love about Minnesota and how the life is so different, how relatable was that?
It's super relatable. I mean, dude, he paints a picture of Minnesota when he raps that if you've been there, you already know. Like, my family always laughs when I call it Minnesota. I got that from an Atmosphere song. You know what I mean? Like, Minnesota.
Yeah.
But, Slug, if you listen to the music that I did, I think you would hear a huge Slug influence on it. And like, I always wanted to get to the point of Atmosphere and having somebody like Ant on the beats. And it's kind of why I stopped, is like, I was just ripping off beats from everybody else, making mixtape stuff. I'd get a couple, beats from people locally. But at the time, people were trying to go to like more clubby music. And I was trying to express myself, and more that I look at it, like, I used music at that time as therapy. Like, all my songs were pretty dark except for one of them, you know what I mean? Or they, like, I had a song called In My Mind that was like, literally ran through like, what is success? What is success going to be to me? And like, I had this line, success can be a pretty little girl in a sundress. Like, it can be like this flash of moment of, oh shit, she's cute. And then it's gone. You know what I mean? And that line reminded me of Slug quite a bit. Like, I was thinking of him when I wrote that. I was thinking of his cadence and how he rapped. And I even think the cadence of how I rapped that line came out like that. But I was always trying to be witty. I always loved like Jay-Z's double entendres and shit like that. So for me, it was, hip hop was like a puzzle, that I was always trying to figure out. And it was fun during that time. And Atmosphere and that song, even Sunshine. I mean, dude, you listen to his music, like, he put it all out there. And he was one of the main reasons why I wanted to make hip hop, I think. And he made it relatable enough to me to where I was like, okay, I can do this.
Yeah, straight up.
Who are your favorite hip hop artists today?
Today, there's a guy named Reason from the West Coast that's on Top Dog, TDE. Cannot stop listening to him. Just raw, kind of West Coast, but with this newer kind of twist to it. I've been bumping a lot of this guy, D Smoke. I just figured out about him. I guess he won the show, but on Netflix, and used to be a teacher in Inglewood. His story is really cool. Who else have I been bumping lately? I've been going back to kind of some of the old Murs stuff and Grouch and Eli stuff, because tattooing, you're tattooing long sessions and you want to mix up the music. So I've been diving kind of back into that. I feel like I'm forgetting somebody. Oh, my phone's right here. So fuck, I know I'm missing somebody that I've been bumping a lot lately, but I listen to Nipsey,
Yep.
2-3 times a week. That'll never change. I mean, yeah, he'll forever be in my playlist.
Yeah.
And forever in my top, you know what I mean? Because that was like living through Pac at a relatable age, And like we were bumping Nipsey's mixtapes in our fucking apartment that we all lived in Long Beach together way back in the day, to the point where I used to tell my homie to turn them off. Every fucking morning he'd have Nipsey bumping and I'd be like, dude, play something different, please.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? But yeah, pretty crazy.
Well, Nipsey was so different, though. You know what I mean? So you've got so many West Coast gangster rappers who have that sound, that sound that we're so familiar with, that keyed in sound, right? What made Nipsey so different was that Nipsey was rapping about gangster rap stuff, but his lyrics were very hip hop head. He has this one line that I always remind people of when they, I've had people try to convince me that Nipsey wasn't that great, and I'll be shocked really, and I'll ask them if they've really listened to him. But he had this one line that always stuck out to me, and he says, "I get criticized for the jewelry that I wear at my shows, but watch the value of the dollar drop and gold explode." I mean, Nipsey was just on that deep thinker level, and he just had that. He had the lyricism of a hip hop head.
I had a conversation with a tattoo artist last week, and he was trying to say like Nipsey was the Tupac of this time, and I didn't feel like that was a fair generalization or thing to say. Two different people. Yeah, they were both very passionate. They were both very forward thinking, but Pac was like forward thinking on like humanity and these things. But Nipsey was a business school. Nipsey was a street school. Nipsey was a mentality school. You know what I mean? Like Nip had Pac was only like 23, 24, right? When he was killed. Like Pac was a young ass kid still and way ahead of his time. But Nip had time to grow. Like, I don't know if a lot of people know, but they own laundromats and white t-shirt spots. You know what I mean? Like they invested their money early. And him telling people those old interviews of like how he gave up street hustling and like how they'd even sell like oregano to people just to get studio equipment. You know what I mean? Like he showed people, yeah, he still raps about the hood, but he actually quit the hood to go and pursue music. And like you look at his old interviews, the way that he's talking about monetizing, the way that he's talking about property, the way that he's talking about gold, the way that his just the mentality that he had and how he was able to communicate it. I feel like he was calmer than Pac and got his point across more than Pac did, unfortunately. Different time too, where people are a lot more open, but I feel like comparing Nipsey Hussle and Tupac isn't fair because they were both now Nipsey alive didn't get the love Pac did. Nipsey wasn't the biggest recording artist in the world.
Right.
Nipsey was super underappreciated, and now he's overappreciated. Well, dude, you know what I mean? So for me, that was a hard generalization to even pocket or accept, because I was like, nah, man, like Nipsey, unfortunately, not to drag Pac down, but Nipsey was on a whole other level of like motivating people and just trying to to show the world business and being smart and like creating your own brand and being the underdog and accepting it. You know, I have the marathon continues tattooed on my leg. I have to tell myself that every single fucking day. You know, like the marathon continues. This is not a fucking 100-yard dash.
Yeah.
I remember he did, like, I think it was with Kevin Hart. He did an interview where he was talking about building his real estate empire, and dude was just on a whole different mindset. It was cool. It was relatable to me because that's what I'm into. I'm into real estate, you know, investing and all that fun stuff down here in Tampa. That was really relatable to me. But like you said, man, he was on a whole nother level because he was all about graduated that street hustle and was like real life hustling now.
And if you see people that like are really comfortable with themselves, they'll give the keys to the car to other people. It's the people that are like want to keep it all hidden. You know, like Nipsey was never that dude. He found something out. He wanted the general public to know, where most of these guys want to keep it a secret. And I think I heard Pharrell say it or somebody like that. Like, fuck the gatekeepers. It's the ones with the keys that are willing to hand the keys to somebody else that keep the culture going, that keep the art going. And I mean, Nipsey's interviews pop up on my thread every single day, and I'm still hearing interviews that I've never heard, and him say things. And to touch on like the lines that he had, dude, I listened to his music today, and I still hear like a 1-2 punch that I never really maybe internalized, or maybe at this point in my life it means more. You know, like his music is timeless, and it will be forever.
The world is full of gatekeepers in any medium that you work in, and it's really unfortunate. I think it's just such a negative perspective to have, that you have to hold people back in order to stay ahead, because it's completely misguided. And if you put that work in and you've got the talent to do something, there's billions of people on this planet. There's people that are going to enjoy you and might also enjoy your friend. It's something that I don't see enough, and I'm not just talking about us or this podcast or anything like that. I don't understand it just, I guess it's just whatever bullshit's trending and whatever. But it's just always funny to me that we can have Haley Bieber hating Selena Gomez be this top trending thing, and everyone, including your grandma, your mom, and your auntie, will repost it. But people don't shout out each other's businesses. They don't shout out fucking anything. You know what I mean? People don't support their friends with stuff, or you've got this gatekeeper mentality where there can only be one. I mean, this shit ain't Highlander. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's room for so many of.
Is like with friends, you know, like they'll promote it when they're getting something out of it, you know. But if they're not, or when they're not, as a part of the movement or whatever, you see that love taper off pretty quickly. I mean, I've had those conversations, obviously, you know, like having these couple businesses that I have. It's been funny because I've been doing the Lost Cove for, I think, 3.5 years now. The trend of people supporting, not supporting, it's been interesting. I'll leave it at that.
Yeah.
My mentor was always telling me, like if you want to fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. You know, it makes sense.
Yeah.
I do want to. We want to dive into the Lost Cove stuff, but we want to hit a couple things first before we get there. But goddamn, that bro, your show's good. It's good, bro. It's real good.
Thank you. We put some fucking blood, sweat, and tears into the Cove After Dark, bro, and it took us a year and a half to get through that first season, but I think we're on the right track.
The production quality and the way that things are thrown together. We got something that's going to segue us there, but let's start with where TV sort of started with you.
Yeah.
Walk us through your experience working with MTV.
It was crazy, dude. I was in Europe, and I got a phone call from Ink Master, and then an email from MTV all at the same time, and went through the processes and chose MTV because there was longevity in it, and the show had been successful in Europe. And went and filmed it. We filmed in New York. We filmed both seasons in about 4.5, 5 months, which is almost unheard of. It was a huge learning process, dude. I'm gonna be honest. Like filming it, I did not have the best time filming it. It was a very rough show to film. You're doing tattoos on people that they don't like. There's this mixed in drama that they want and all that. So it was kind of hard for me to internalize. Looking back on it now, I wish I would have been a little bit more present and had a little bit more fun. But there was a lot of stuff happening on set that just kind of rubbed me the wrong way as a tattoo artist and as a person in general. So it was like just this whirlwind of filming in 2 seasons, trying to figure out production, trying to be a tattoo artist. But the biggest thing I think I took from all that is like I was watching all the producers and all the behind the scenes stuff, and it was super intriguing. And me and my buddy Kevin, after we'd work, we'd go back to our hotel and we'd talk about it like, damn, it'd be kind of cool to be a producer. And we'd always tell the producers that, and they'd laugh at us and they'd be like, oh, you guys are the ones on TV, like you don't want this job. But in my head, I was like, no, I want both. Like I want both and, you know? And watching the director and how he moved, watching all these producers and how they moved, watching the EPs and how they moved, watching this, you know, like a production like that is this huge thing. You know, for me to go to the bathroom, it's got to be radioed in, you know, and somebody's got to walk me to the bathroom. Like it was crazy. But then we also filmed like where 106 and Park was filmed, where Iron Chef was filmed. So you could feel the energy of the show's past, you know, and we all knew that it was going to hit. It didn't hit as hard as we thought it was going to, but especially in first season, like we all knew we were coming back for a second for sure. So that was kind of fun. And then the whole just being on that network and that network kind of being what introduced me to everything as a kid was obviously a dream come true, you know, to be under that banner, to be under the MTV banner was really fucking cool.
Yeah, I remember. I think we were eating pokey in North Park. I think we met up and we were eating pokey in North Park, and you were telling me about it, and you said that, bro, it's crazy. Like they're gonna style me and they're gonna pay for wardrobe and all that kind of stuff. But we're just in the beginning stages. Next thing I know, I'm seeing these ads, and there's my boy Travis, you know, with the leather jacket and all that. Well, reality shows are well known for being very sort of scripted, but you can't fake some of the reactions on that show. Your reactions and Nico's in particular were always hilarious and seemed very genuinely uncomfortable when watching.
Yeah, I mean, dude.
What were those moments like on those reveals as the artist being filmed? You know, because as an artist, you guys are what you're looking for is that wow factor in a good way. And this is so counterintuitive to everything the tattooist generally strives for. You know, is you want that good shock and awe. And this is just so backwards in a basic.
The trip of it was like, so sometimes like we could tell it was going to pop off, obviously. Like we could tell the two people hated each other. We know the tattoos. But in general, you just never knew what was going to happen with these people once they saw it. You know, we had people try to beat the system, but I was never handed a script and told, this is what you say. I was never handed a script and say, this is how you react. You know, you have an earpiece in and they'll tell you, you know, certain things. Like there was this one gentleman that was very, very upset and they felt like he may come after me. So over my ear, they're like, hey, if he swings on you, just back up and get security there. They were like, Travis, do not fight back. Travis, do not fight back. And literally in the ear, I said, if that motherfucker comes after me, I'm swinging on it. Fuck that. I'm not waiting for security. He was a big fucking dude. And sure enough, like he kept inching towards me and inching towards me. So finally they pulled me off set. You'll never see it like on the actual episode. It looks like I was out there the whole time. But they pulled me off for like a good 10 minutes because homeboy said he was going to pound my face in.
Wow.
So yeah, it was always interesting.
Yeah, and that's the funny thing is like you read the comments on YouTube and stuff like that, and it's like, you know, I do understand some of them were incredibly shocking.
Yeah.
I don't think that as prepared as you think you are for going on a show like that, as somebody who's sitting in the chair, some of those ideas were so wild. I don't think that there's any way to mentally prepare. There was somebody there was somebody on there that had a tree shaped like a dick
Mhm.
with balls hanging off of it. You know what I mean? Like there's no.
And that was like kind of funny, like I did some terrible stuff. And in all honesty, like I'd say a good portion of the tattoo industry was just disgusted with me for doing it.
Right.
A huge portion of it. People that we're friends with were like, dude, what the fuck is wrong with you? But for me, my apprenticeship started on Sunset Boulevard across from the fucking Whiskey A Go Go. We were open till 4 a.m. I saw people do stuff on people drunk that should have never happened. Like, and in my head, I had to keep telling myself, like, these people are signing up for this. And unfortunately, at that time, that was one of the highest forms of entertainment. I don't regret it at all. And going back, I probably would have still done it. But yeah, you look back at those tattoos and some of the tattoos I did, dude, it sits on my conscience. I'd be lying if I said that it doesn't.
Sure. Well, you're a good dude. That show was sort of a guilty pleasure binge worthy show. So was Jersey Shore, and part of that was, the infamous Snooki. There's gonna be people that are sitting here and dying to know if I don't ask. What was it like getting to know the actual Snooki?
I mean, I call her Nicole, and
Yeah.
Nicole is a family woman, to be honest, like all about her husband, all about her kids. Uh, she was pregnant during the second season. You know what I mean? So she ended up stepping off, and Justina Valentine ended up stepping in. But she's not like this out of control person that everybody makes her out to be. She's got a big personality. She makes some of the jokes that she makes on TV and stuff like that. But like she's also so much older than she was when that show came out. And at this point, I think she's trying to be a lot more professional with her career. So to be honest, like we didn't get a lot of interaction with the hosts. Like they were in a different side of the dressing rooms. Their dressing rooms were on a different floor than ours. So we'd see them on set. I got close to Nico. Like Nico and I are boys. I've tattooed him a bunch of times. Nico and I have talked a lot about emotional intelligence because he's super into it. Like working with Nicole was great. She was a good person. She was cool with all of us, but she's not what people think she is.
Yeah, for sure. I think when people look back on the whole Snooki stuff, people forget how young those kids were when they were on that show. You know what I mean? They forget. It's when I was 21, 22. Thank God there was no more cameras around. We had enough going around on social media. You know what I mean? That was bad enough. Having to text people. I mean, shit. I was a problem, and I'm sober now because I was such a problem. But and I know they signed up for the show and stuff like that, but you got to remember that people are not the same. I'm not the same dude that I was when I was in my 20s.
No, and they're not stoked on a lot of the stuff that was shown either. Like,
Right.
I talked to Vinny briefly once, and dude, they're not, they're not stoked that they acted like fucking drunk assholes on TV. They're stoked about the outcome and what it did for them, but like them being grown adults now and having kids and shit like that, like they don't want their kids seeing that. Like
Right.
if I was put on TV like that at 21, America would have fucking hated me.
Yeah.
Like,
Straight up.
and that's the thing that I think people forget. And like, yeah, they signed up for it, whatever, but most of America is lying to themselves if they don't think they would have looked just as bad at that age, being given alcohol for free, being put in all these clubs. Like they're living a rock star life after like living with their parents. You know what I mean? Like
Yep.
they weren't even like acting or doing anything before that. So you throw people into that mix, and then you throw being a celebrity into the mix, and like all these things that people think are the best thing in the world. And I've had a very minute view of this. Like D-list celebrity at best. You know what I mean? But even the stuff that's come with that at times is a lot. Like watching like Bernadette when she filmed her show on CMT and like what she went through and her being a public figure, like it's not all that people think it's cracked up to be. And there's a lot of shit that comes with it. And then you have to remember that you're in the public eye and you need to watch every fucking thing you do. Like I've battled with having a temper my whole life. Dude, if I would have been caught in some of the heated moments that I've had, I would have been canceled fucking 60 times over. You know what I mean? Like, and there's no room for people like that to grow outside of the public eye. And so the growth is stunted then too, because of that. So I think going on that MTV show more than anything, like just showed to me like we're all human and like this reality TV show shit can portray people to be a certain thing. But I mean, I would say 7 out of 10 times the people that I've met that have been on reality TV, you know, it's a part you play, you know what I mean? And that's it. But it's not, most of the time, it's not who these people generally are. And then I don't think people know what they're actually signing up for, you know, like imagine just trying to go to the movies and just being bombarded by people. And then if you're mean or if you don't like give one of them the full smile that they want, next thing you know, they're taking off on the internet, calling you a piece of shit and all this stuff. Or, you know, like you meet so many people and you can't remember everybody's name. Like, you know, I have people walk up to me sometimes and go, oh, I met you 8 years ago at this convention. And I'm like, fuck, man, like, awesome. I don't particularly remember it. I'm sorry. I don't remember your name. But if I were to say that out loud, they'd be like, oh, fuck that guy. He thinks he's all Hollywood now. And it's no, you meet a lot of people in this lifestyle. You don't remember every single interaction, unfortunately.
Yeah, shit, I don't remember every interaction as is right now, and I ain't shit.
Same.
Like, you know, straight up, I got goldfish memory. If we went to school since kindergarten all the way up through college, and I haven't seen you in 3 months, I will not remember your name. Straight up. Like unless I follow you on social media and I'm seeing you post, you know, your latest vacation to Niagara Falls, I don't know what the fuck's going on with you, and I probably am gonna space your name for at least the first half an hour of a conversation.
Unfortunately, I'm probably going to call you by your Instagram name before you're regular.
Yeah.
That's the times we're in. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, when you see it all day, every day, it kind of resonates more than the normal name.
Yeah. Yo, what up, Darth Squirtle?
Seriously, like, I can't tell you how many times like I've done that or somebody around me has done it and we just look at each other and we're like, you know, that's the Instagram name. And you're like, oh yeah, fuck.
My bad.
My bad, exactly. But Nico is who I really gravitated towards, and still to this day we shoot each other texts, you know, every once in a while. And getting to know him was cool because like he really put it into my head. He was like, dude, you're good at this TV stuff, like naturally good at it. And he was like, you should continue this in any form or fashion that you can moving forward because you're that good at it. Like you're made for it. So Nico really started to give me the confidence that led me to starting my own production company, taking a crew out to Northern Ireland and shooting a traveling tattoo show pilot, and then landing on, you know, the Cove After Dark, you know, and the whole crew that I work with to this day, well, not the whole crew, but the main part of the crew, my boy Alex Rinks, I met him on MTV, you know, and we put our heads together and we were like, show's kind of bullshit. Let's do some shit that really inspires people.
And we did want to say that we really enjoyed Nico on that show. Just the moments that we got to see, he seemed like a very genuine person. Definitely the best hair on MTV.
Far.
Well, if they would have let a motherfucker not wear a hat, they said I looked like 35 without a hat on because of my receding hairline. But I maybe would have put the best hair on MTV to test there.
Yeah.
Nah, I'm kidding. He's got those little waves and shit like that. It's just too natural. You can't beat it.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it reminded me of that what was that line from Dodgeball? Look at that hair, feathered and flawless. You just don't see that anymore.
Well, what's funny is like I'd be in wardrobe and they'd have to call down on set to see what Nico was wearing, and they never wanted us to like look too similar. You know what I mean? But it was like always a running joke between me and him. I'd walk down and I'd be like, "You fucked my wardrobe up for today. Like, thanks, buddy. Thanks." I had to change 3 times.
Okay, so the Cove After Dark feels much more true Travis, and I can say this being somebody that's been fortunate enough to become friends with you. When I saw the MTV stuff, of course your reactions seemed genuine, but that didn't let really I don't think it really let anyone know what Travis is really like. But when we get to see you on the Cove After Dark, it's incredible. It's you get to actually see who Travis is, what Travis is like. You get to see the gears turning. It's great. How did that start?
So right before COVID hit, we had basically sold our pilot for this traveling TV show. COVID hit. I had gotten into a bad business deal with 2 guys. They ended up taking me to court in a different state, and trying to take everything, including the Lost Cove. And we were just kind of sitting here, and I was talking to my boy Alex, and I was like, we have to do something. Like, we've got something here. We've got a good little crew. And I always loved Johnny Carson, but I'm not funny, you know, not a comedian like he is. So I always like thought about a job like that and thought it'd be like the best job in the world. And like watching the VJs back in the day, I always loved watching the VJs, loved watching people doing interviews, and like being around creatives is just my jam, and picking their brains. I do it anyways, you know, so why not do it on a bigger scale? So then we started talking about it, and I was like, well, you know, I've got the Lost Cove headquarters, you know, like what if we put it on set there and made it kind of an on location thing? And then we started bouncing around. Well, a lot of these creatives for season 1 that we're going to interview are local. So what if we go to them first and kind of show them and in their area? And that's when it really started to stick. And we were like, ooh, this is different. You know, this isn't just another late night show. And then we got our first sponsor involved, which was a mezcal company, and they, you know, put another notch on it. Not everybody drank, but you know, to just have that on set and have it as something else in LA kind of fit the late night thing. And as you know, like I like to drink, but I like to think I'm somebody that can hold my alcohol well. So, you know, like being able to get a little buzz on with some friends and talk art and play some games and stuff like that just sounded like a lot of fun. And we know a bunch of local musicians, so we just started to kind of craft this thing. And then we shot the first one with Wild Coyote and Bad Wolf, and it was by the seat of our fucking pants, dude. Like, we didn't really do any pre-pro. We didn't really set up too much other than the locations and the fact that we knew that they were going to perform at the end. And at the end of the night, we all looked at each other and we were like, this wasn't it yet, but this concept is it. And it was a struggle, dude. Like I said, it took a year and a half to finish 5 episodes. During COVID, people having to cancel, you know, not having the money to pay people, our guests, you know, some people signed up for it and then they dropped off, you know, like we were supposed to have a huge guest and then it just didn't happen. And then we had to get over that because that was supposed to be our finale. But then the finale ended up being fucking perfect. Couldn't have been any better. And then my childhood hero, Eric Wilson, came on it, you know what I mean, and played music, and I got to tattoo him and I got to chop it up and talk to him about Brad and Sublime and all that stuff. So I'm in my zone with the Cove After Dark, man. Like, that is my fucking jam. I love every bit and piece about it. We're working on season 2 right now. New sponsors, trying to make it bigger, trying to decide if we want to go on network or keep it on YouTube and make the push for network. But we're just getting started with that too. Like, some of the concepts we have for season 2, it's going to be cool. And it was just a chance for us as a crew to continue to work together and get to know each other. And now we've been doing production together for 4 years. We've traveled to Ireland. We've been all over, and we got it down, man, with just like 3 or 4 of us. So once we get the right budget, like, people think the production value is good now. We're doing what most people do with a crew of 20, with a crew of 4 to 5. Like, give us that crew of 20, man, and to the moon and back. It is, you know, shit. I might just end up doing a damn episode on the moon. Like, fuck it, I'll do it anywhere. Like the sky's the limit with that, and I really feel that way. And it's been such a gift to get to know these creatives, and then like building the relationships with them after. Like for the last episode was Alex Miller, For Those Who Sin. He changed the course of the Lost Cove company forever, and he opened up production doors for clothing that I never had, and that most people gatekeep for years. Sitting down with Rick Thorne, like, Rick was the reason that I built those fucking jumps back in the day, and then to be sitting next to him and like to be playing games with him, and he tattooed me, and then he came back the next day, and or 2 days later, and he got the Lost Cove tattooed on him twice. He got the wheel in 2 places in the same, you know what I mean? And to have a childhood hero be like, damn, I want your logo. Get the fuck out of here. You know what I mean? For a kid that was on a farm in Minnesota at one point, it's just insane, and like this show to me, I think it's a constant reminder of where I came from and like what's possible.
It's cool you mentioned the location, because when I was watching your show, I texted LJ, and it was actually that Rick Thorne episode, and I was like, bro, perfect fucking setting to start off at the skate park. Like the locations,
Bro,
phenomenal, sir, phenomenal.
thank you. And like just those extra thoughts and like that extra care is what makes the show what it is. And I just can't wait for it to be on a platform or in the eyes in front of more people, because we did all right, for just pushing it on my Instagram. My Instagram got deleted in the middle of it. The sponsors tried to help as much as they could, but it's hard to gain traction on stuff like that, especially when you're releasing episodes every couple months. But for season 2, we're going to shoot it all in a block. The episodes will come out consecutively within a couple of weeks. And I really hope that people can tune in and hear some of the stories of these people, because they're fucking phenomenal. Like Lemir's episode was only 12 minutes, unfortunately. Like, dude, we shot segments that had to get cut. Like, nobody really knows what goes on behind scenes, but Lemir's 12-minute episode is like one of the most inspiring things you could watch. You know what I mean? Like, that dude built everything from the ground up, and now has one of the most like biggest brands in desserts. Went from tattooing to desserts, you know what I mean? And in a food truck. And now is in Disney and all these fucking crazy places. So the main thing of that show, a lot of people think like it's to like for this cool guy mentality or whatever. No, you got to have the aesthetic, and you got to let people be who they are. Like, we're interviewing creatives. We all like to dress fancy, and we like to put on some extra jewelry. But if you really sit down and listen to these people's stories, man, it'll change the trajectory of your dreams and your path if you internalize it enough. Like For Those Who Sin is like one of the biggest clothing brands in the world, and they have one of the most humble starts ever. So yeah, to be a part of that, like, and then it just drives selfishly, like, I'm just getting all this fuel by interviewing these people and internalizing it and making it bigger and better. So I can't wait to see where that goes. Like, I still have plans. One day I hope that they consider me one of the late night hosts and one of the best.
Oh yeah.
You still skate?
Yeah, a little bit, but I can't afford to break my wrist and shit anymore.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like surfing is what I try to do, but I haven't even been able to do that much. I ride my skateboard a lot, but then the thing is, like, I want to do an ollie or do a manual, and next thing you know, I slip and bust my tailbone, and I'm like, damn, that was almost my wrist. And like back in Venice, when I was still tattooing in Venice, it was like my second year of tattooing. I was going through the crosswalk, and somebody hit me when I was on my skateboard, broke my arm, and I was out for like 2 months. That shit was gnarly.
Yeah, I feel that, bro. I used to skate as a kid. I always grew up at the skate park at Tampa, I've tried. I got buddies that still skate. They're like, bro, come to the spot. Like, I'm 33 now, bro. I'm pretty tall like you. My knees hurt and shit. Like, I can't skate no more.
Mm-hmm.
I can longboard and just cruise, but I'm not heel flipping no more. We're not getting crazy. It hurts.
No, that one heel flip in my ankle is like yelling at me, making noise.
Yeah, I don't rebound like I used to. The last time that I took a nasty spill, I was in Encinitas, and anyone that's been to Encinitas, beautiful town in North County, San Diego, but it's very hilly, deep, big hills. And that was probably the last time that I took a real nasty spill. I was bombing this hill, completely wiped out down at the bottom, and I wasn't right for probably 2 months. And that, I didn't even need surgery. And that's, I'm almost 40 at this point. I turned 39 in July. And there's just a certain point where you have to consider other things besides what you love. I think the good thing about that, the caveat, is that it does push us in other passionate directions, though, where we can focus our time and energy that we used to spend maybe when we were in grade school or high school just trying to land a kickflip in the back, back of the skate park.
Yeah, I mean, and back then you took the lick and it was fun. It was funny. You got the air knocked out of you. You were laughing after. You know, shit. Now, bro, there's two things that stop me from skating. A, I'd like to wear a nice pair of kicks, and you try to do one ollie, and
Done.
there goes the side. And then the other thing is, like I said, I broke my arm 3 summers in a row. Like, I hit the table every morning. I stub my toe. Like, not the most graceful person in the world sometimes. You know what I mean? So once you get older too, you got to remember that who you are naturally isn't the most athletic person in the world.
Yeah. Well, you are kind of known for being really stylish. Tell us about your inspiration for the Lost Cove, the clothing sect, and how that started.
Yeah, I mean, so coming off of the MTV show, I knew that I needed to do something to keep, the hype going. So the concept of the Lost Cove came all as one. It was doing pop-up shops with clothing and tattooing until I could afford to open up our own space. And so we did, I tried to do a small pop-up in LA, and it was terrible. And then we went to Duluth, Minnesota, and went to a mall, but it was planned. So we knew we were going to this mall, and I was like, okay, everybody in tattooing is doing like skulls, all this fucking crazy tattoo art shit, which I love. Don't get me wrong. Like, that's what got me involved. But as my style was starting to change and my taste was starting to change, I was like, I want to kind of go back to like the roots of like more plain clothing. And at the time, it's funny because vintage is fully in now. And there's been a couple times that I'm not going to lie, and I'm not like bragging, but we've been ahead of the curve with the decisions that we've made with the apparel. So I was like, I just want to do old retro like surf and skate designs and stuff like that. The stuff that really gravitated towards me when I first moved to California. And the idea of the whole was taking all these subcultures, because I'm a melting pot of a lot of different cultures, I feel like, and I wanted to make a brand that wasn't just direct towards tattooing, wasn't just direct towards skating. Like, you could catch a skater wearing it, you can catch a gangster wearing it, you could catch the dad on the Midwest wearing it. And even though our sales aren't where I would like them to be, and they're struggling as of right now, we've accomplished that. We've put clothes on ASAP Ferg. We've put clothes on fucking the dad in Minnesota, and he's got like half of our wardrobe, you know what I mean? And then stylistically, we're starting to change so much. And sometimes I went through phases of really clean cut stuff of like, crew necks that were like thin and tight fitting with just a little bit of embroidery. And then we've done some big prints, and we've done homages to cities. We just did one for the Pike in Long Beach. We did one for Fairfax Boulevard. And now we've got our City of Champions tee, which is a nod to Inglewood, where our headquarters has been since the beginning. So the Lost Cove was just trying to take all these crazy ideas and all these subcultures from California that really influenced me, and turning it into a brand, and turning it into a contemporary lifestyle brand, that could do art, that could do, I want to do furniture one day, like I love to decorate, you know what I mean? Like the Lost Cove headquarters I've curated the fuck out of that. Some of our pop-ups have been a little bit more impressive than others because we had more tools available in the cities that we were in. But like the first one, dude, I even like had a smell coming out of there that was, planned out. I wanted it to be like Bath and Body Works, where you walk by, you're like, holy shit, that smells good. Damn, that's a tattoo shop. Damn, they have apparel. Oh, they're from California. Oh, they're all traveling. Shit, I'm walking in there. So it's one of the biggest challenges I've had. It sometimes is very widespread and could be contained and maybe a little bit more planned out, but I love every moment of it. The traveling we've been able to do, like just seeing how much apparel we've produced. Like I think like 6 months ago, I laid out everything that we've produced, and no, we're not making the sales that we should be, but we're still surviving. We made it through COVID. We moved into our headquarters in September of 2020, in the middle of it all. And it was just, if you build it, it will come. That was my thing. And right now, like I'm even spending half my time in Arizona managing my buddy's tattoo shop just to make sure that I keep this afloat. You know what I mean? Never thought I'd have to go back to work for somebody else, but if it's to keep this thing going, fuck it. I'll do it. I'm all in because we're just getting started.
Yeah, it's cool. So you mentioned furniture and everything, and even the smell is planned out. So not to throw another wrench in the mix here or spread you too thin, but hear me out. Lost Cove Staging Co., bro. So I'm in real estate, so we always got to have like a staging company, and that's exactly what they do. They
Yep.
plan out the furniture, even the smell, because when a buyer walks in, or like a customer at your shop, it has to be inviting. They have to remember you because they're gonna see 10 other houses throughout the day. I'm like, man, that one that smelled good. Oh, and then they start talking about, it's imprinted in their mind. That
Yeah.
it's cool that that's kind of how you run your business too, because it is effective.
Bro, so I have two of the best lawyers in the world. Shout out to Patrick and Jason. Like these motherfuckers, they're
Are we talking are we talking Cochran type lawyers or like Better Call Saul?
we're talking entertainment. We're talking entertainment, like just gangsters, like from Philly and New York, just two of the best guys in the world, but they're fucking ruthless, dude. And so we had signed a major contract with this mall to do a pop-up every 3 months. And I'm sitting at home and Patrick calls me. It's like 6 o'clock at night on the West Coast. So if he's on the East Coast, it's like 9. He's like, yo, Trav, I got an idea. He was like, I'm going to call CBL Properties tomorrow and I'm going to pitch to them that they need to make you their fucking, what's the right word? Basically, like the person that helps them with all their pop-ups. He was like, you know what you're doing. Like,
The coordinator?
almost more of a, can't think of the word. There's a title for it, but you come onto companies and you basically help them. You know what I mean? Fuck, I sound so stupid right now.
It's all good. I'm gonna edit all this out.
Yeah. They what is it called? I just got to think of the word.
We'll just call you the problem solver.
Yeah, the problem solver. Like basically, he was like, you should be, called in when they're doing pop-ups, and you should let them know like what works, what doesn't in malls, what's successful, because like the first pop-up we did astronomical numbers. Looking back on it, if COVID wouldn't have happened, like we were supposed to, we did so well that the mall wanted us to go to Caesar's Palace next. And at that time, we would have been the first tattoo shop to ever grace Caesar's Palace Mall. So like, and this is the biggest mall group in America, the most successful. So he was like, check it out, T. Like, you should be telling these motherfuckers how to run it, and you should be getting paid for it. So he literally called them the next day and pitched it to him. Like, that's how much he believes in me. He was like, he called them the next day, and he was like, check it out. I think, you guys are trying to get into pop-ups. You guys have these select pop-up stores now that people can rent in your malls. And, like, Travis should be helping you guys make this work and letting you know what the companies that are coming in need more than anything so they can help them. So, yeah, I'm pretty stoked to have people like that pump me up. Because I first thing I would have told people is, like, smell in a mall is, like, the biggest thing. Like, you want to attract somebody to your store, send a scent out. You know what I mean? Turn ahead real quick.
Yeah, it's like them cartoons. Scent just grabbed you.
Yeah. Yeah, Pepe Le Pew.
Yeah.
Well, I don't care if you're on a diet or not. You walk past Wetzel's Pretzels and Cinnabon, and you already know. It's like even if, I don't know how many times I've bought Wetzel's Pretzels stuff. I don't even like Wetzel's Pretzels. Their stuff always comes out tasting basically like overcooked cardboard shit. But it smells so damn good, I still buy it.
And dude, being in the malls and having to walk past that every day was the worst. Like in South Carolina, we were in the fucking food court, bro. Like every 2 seconds, I'm catching a whiff of something, and I'm like, "Fuck, I'm hungry."
Yeah. Yeah, when I was straight out of high school, I worked at a a lot of people probably don't remember this chain, but maybe some hip hop heads on the West Coast remember, but it was called Mr. Rags. And Mr. Rags was this dope mix. It was, yo, to this day, one of the coolest stores that I've ever seen in a mall. But it was all about mixing that urban style with the skate style. And so I was selling, like, I would sell a $200 velour suit, and then in the next transaction, I'd be building some kid his first skateboard, putting a deck together in the back and shaving his grip tape down. And it was dope. The whole place was just very industrial looking and covered in graffiti and all that. But I'm getting super off topic. There was a Cinnabon right across the way. And fuck, dude, I had to be careful because even young kid with the fast metabolism, I can't be eating a damn Cinnabon every other day.
Yeah. Well, and like, in all fairness, my mom has been a card dealer in Vegas for like 20, 30 years. So just seeing like the stuff that casinos do to keep people in there pumping air, like getting to know stuff like that at a young age, and then getting the chance to create my own version and putting it into a brand is like one of the funnest and most wholesome things I've ever done, dude. To be honest, like looking back on those stores, those are some of my greatest moments and my biggest moments of pride, which is hard for me sometimes to look back and pat myself on the back, you know?
Well, you are known for tattooing and being the host of a show, making clothing. Before we take off, I do want to have you talk to people about Tribe.
Yeah.
So, how did that start? What was the basis for that? I know a lot of it was based in emotional intelligence, which I think is so super important, and I'm glad that coming from a recovery sort of background, that is becoming a highlighted trend in society and culture.
Yeah. I mean, so I was going through some very rough points, hopped in a very radical self-help program in LA, spent like 2 years in it. And throughout it, I was really intrigued by the people, the trainers, the people that were giving us the content, the people that were taking us through the exercises. So I took like their last course was how to become a trainer, and basically you take this course and then you do your own course at the end. And so Tribe stands for Transform, Resurrect Yourself, Be Empowered. The first iteration of it was to do a documentary where we went to India, and like it was just this wild idea of like tattooing people in temples and giving out free tattoos and all that. But then I went through this and I was like, I want to impact people's lives. So I put together, this course that included art and mindfulness all together. Did them for, I'd say, like a year and a half. But I don't know. I wasn't really feeling the people that were in that industry. I wasn't really feeling who they really were. Putting yourself on a pedestal like that is great, but there was a lot of opinions, which you don't think there would be among the actual trainers, and people telling me that I shouldn't be tattooing anymore and this and that. And I'm like, if the world's supposed to be both and, maybe I'm more impactful being myself and like chasing my dreams. And then you build something like that and people get behind it. A bunch of people have the Tribe logo tattooed on it. You're like, you can't just give it up. You know what I mean? But I got over the fact of it being like this company or this thing, and I just wanted it to be a way of life. So instead of doing like these workshops, I started talking at high schools that were in really bad neighborhoods. And then with the Lost Cove company, we started doing fundraising during our pop-ups, and like we did one in Tulare, California, and we were able to raise over $20,000 for a continuation school out there that had pretty much all their budget cut. So Tribe is like started as this idea and this thing of me doing these workshops and me being this impactful person that like told people how to do things and like how to get over their trauma, which is great. It's great for that. But I also felt like most of us weren't fully trained. You know, like, yeah, I felt like there needed to be like more psychology classes taken and stuff like that. Like when you're dealing with people's emotions and you're unlocking their trauma, you need to know how to deal with that fully. And a class for a year and being a part of a program for another year isn't enough. So I also kind of looked at it as I'm not fully prepared to be unpacking people's trauma like that, you know? And that's a big thing. And also I still wanted to chase my dreams. So tribe has just become kind of like a way of life, I feel like, and just it's fully ingrained into the Lost Cove, you know? When we travel, we try to do things to impact the community. Once we get to a bigger position, I'd love to help out a lot more schools. But through Tribe, I also realized, like in the past year, that I had to back off that stuff to start working on myself again, because COVID and the court case and all these businesses and stuff just packed up and stacked on my shoulders so much that I was like, I need to get back to who I was, you know, in those moments. And I feel like when you're trying to be a trainer and all that, you don't, or a Tony Robbins or something like that, sometimes you don't give yourself the space to realize that you're not who you need to be, you know? So that's my biggest thing with that is like, if I'm going to go out and inspire people, then, you know, talk to people, I need to be in a certain headspace. And in all honesty, I haven't been there the past year. So, you know, reaching out and doing things while we were on the road was my version of it. So I think Tribe is always going to just be something that's ever evolving. And, you know, I'm going to try to keep it as a way of life and a pillar of who the Lost Cove is, instead of like trying to throw these workshops. And who knows, one day I may do the workshops again. One day I may feel inclined or feel like it's the right time. I never count something completely out. But overall, like, I don't know, be it. You know, you don't have to create a company and do all these things and create all these followers. And that's what came out of it. I know some people are disappointed that like I didn't move forward with this, you know, plan of saving the world. But for me, focusing down, and I've found like chasing after my dreams and being myself has maybe been more inspiring to other people than those workshops were.
Right. Makes sense.
In a project like that, I think it's more important to lead with your heart than your head. And I think that who you are in the direction that you're moving, I would say that you're definitely doing that.
Thank you. I mean, dude, I want to get back to the point where, you know, I'm talking high schools a lot again and like really making the impact. But dude, sometimes you just got to take yourself some time for yourself and figure yourself the fuck out.
Yep.
And it's not always best to be in front of other people and trying to guide their path too when you're unsure on yours a bit.
So I wanted to ask you, we kind of started this podcast based on this video game that LJ and I play. So like our core audience is mostly gamers, and it's like Marvel comic based and stuff. But in your song, The Innocence of Childhood, you had a shitload of references, bro. So we talk about TMNT, Toe Jam, and Earl, which was my shit, and I'm glad you said that.
Yeah.
But as a kid, or I guess even now, bro, is there like what comics did you grow up on? What games? Like
Comics, like I would like kind of just, it's funny because comic book art pushed me to want to be an artist, but I didn't collect a lot of comics. Like I had a couple Spider-Man. I had I collected all the flip book comics that came in the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle serial when it came out. It was out for like 6 months, but there was like 4 or 5 different flip books. Made sure I had all them motherfuckers. I don't remember comic wise as much, but you know, like Dragon Ball Z was a big thing for me for a while. I think I tried to draw the characters, so that might have sparked like wanting to be an artist. And then when I was a kid, like playing video games was my jam. You know, like I had the original PlayStation, the first ever X Games game, Tony Hawk Pro Skater. We'd all pile in the room and play fucking GoldenEye and cuss at each other and beat each other up. You know what I mean? 8 dudes in a sweaty ass little bedroom. You know, I played a lot of NBA 2K. We get really heated on that. Madden back in the day. I remember the first ever Madden. I remember I basically learned how to cheat, like, and return kickoffs like no other. It was like 2 jukes to the right and straight down the sideline. And my buddy Jimmy would like slap the controller out of my hand when I'd do it too many times in a row. He'd be like, fuck that, dude, you're cheating. You know what I mean? So video games were great, but as I got older, dude, you know, like I've got so much going on. It's a distraction, in all honesty. Like the extra time that I do have, I need to try to spend with my family or painting, drawing, learning more about business. But during COVID, I got really serious on Xbox, and I was playing NBA 2K. And I'll keep it honest with you guys. I was using the Warriors because it was the older game. Had a great season, got into the playoffs, and got into the NBA Finals. And I paused the game for 2 days and ordered the 2017 Warriors championship hat and ended up winning the title. Put the hat on, ran around the apartment like a madman for like an hour, and Bernadette was just shaking her head at me like, what the fuck?
Yeah.
Like you literally ordered the hat and everything. So I had fun during COVID again.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I can only imagine. I can only imagine Bernadette looking at you like you're a crazy guy running around with your controller. So do you keep up with the MCU at all? In any of the superhero movies, any of that kind of stuff?
Yeah, I mean, we watch most of those movies. They're great, dude. You know, like I haven't watched every single one, but I'm loving how they're making the superheroes more relatable and giving them human traits, you know, and showing them without the mask on or whatever, and showing, you know, them either having alcohol problems or, you know, having emotional issues or anger issues or whatever. And the way that they're evening the playing and like making these people actually humanize as well, I think is really cool. I think the comedy and the wittiness on some of these is great. Obviously, the special effects just keep getting better, but it is so impressive to see the universes that they've built, to see Disney Plus jumping on all these shows coming out. Like the shows are great too. We've watched a few of the shows. The one with the man and the woman that are married. I can't think of it.
Wandavision.
And he's like bionic. Yeah, WandaVision. Yeah. Dude, that series was fucking insane.
Yeah. So cool how they went from like black and
that
white,
really
like through the eras as the season progressed.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that was rad. Super rad. I think all that stuff is great. Like the new Ninja Turtle movies,
Yeah.
But
can't win them all.
Yeah, you can't win them all.
Once in a while, we like to hit the guests with a lightning round of questions.
Yeah.
We just say best of, worst of sort of thing. But just on that topic, what was your favorite Marvel? Who's your guy? Who's your chick? Who's your favorite?
It's Iron Man, bro. Just Tony Stark is such a fucking gangster. You know what I mean? Like, by far, he's my favorite. Yeah, hands down. He was the first character too that they really humanized like that. You know what I mean? Other than that Will Smith movie where he played that fucked up superhero.
Yeah.
Right.
You know, but I felt like that's where they kind of saw, oh shit, this works, and then they doubled down on it.
Well, nobody's got swagger like Robert Downey Jr., so it was a perfect role for him.
Yeah.
Okay, let's hop into this lightning round really quick.
Send it.
Best taco shop in LA.
Oh. Way to start our lightning round off.
Yeah, you're gonna get hated.
Yeah, taco truck off of Pico. Sorry, that's the best.
Best place to skate or ride.
Playa del Rey Beach.
Worst airport.
Oh, there's a few on my list. I would say Phoenix.
Best game of all time.
Toe Jam and Earl.
Whose album is on repeat right now?
D-Smoke.
Least favorite place you've ever visited?
South Dakota.
Hip hop artist that you would love to work with?
Slug.
Favorite tattoo artist of yours right now?
That's dirty. Skip that one. Sorry.
That's fair.
Yeah.
I plead the fifth.
Yeah. I thought you were gonna plead the fifth on the best taco shop in LA too.
I should have, but that came and went, baby.
Okay, and then coolest superhero And we're not talking about the movie. He's just coolest superhero.
My grandfather.
Hell yeah.
Nice. I love that one.
Real life superhero. Real life superhero.
I love it. If you have any advice to someone who's trying to become an artist or a content creator, what would that be?
Fucking send it. Don't look back. Do whatever it takes. Try things. Fuck up. Like, that's the whole point of it, you know? The journey comes before the end. So hit the journey hard. Do it with passion. Do it with love. Follow your heart. And some crazy shit will happen.
What legacy do you hope to leave for future generations? What do you hope to be remembered most for?
Making my ceiling my floor.
Nice. There's another, LJ usually asks our guests this. You know, if family or friends or somebody is just discovering Travis Ross for the first time, where should they begin?
The Cove After Dark, baby. On YouTube, season 1.
Love it.
Let's say that somebody, one of our listeners who doesn't know about you, is going to give one of your videos one chance. Which episode do you want them to start with?
Episode 5. The season finale. It all came together. That's the best representation of who we are and where we're going. I felt like I was the most comfortable as a host. You know, there were some episodes where I felt like I was too quiet, didn't like really show my personality, but I feel as a whole, like you really get a gist of who I am and what makes me passionate, what drives me, what my passions are from that episode.
Well, you guys heard it here, and we want to thank you for coming on, Travis. If you guys are listening to this at home, if you're on YouTube, go ahead and like and subscribe, please. It doesn't mean much to you guys. It means a lot to us. If you go down into the more info section, I'm going to have all of Travis's social media stuff linked. I'm going to have his Cove After Dark in there. If you made it this far into the YouTube or any of that, go through there, go check him out, go look at his work, go check out the Cove After Dark. And if you're in LA, hit him up and look for that taco shop off Pico.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming on, Travis. It was a pleasure, man. It was really nice to meet you.
Yeah.
And keep up the good work, bro. I hope to come visit you guys one day soon.
Yeah, you guys as well, man. Thank you for having me on. Keep going with the podcast. This was fun.
All right, brother. Well, that was episode 6, and thank you guys for joining us. Stay tuned for upcoming episodes. Thanks for joining us today. Appreciate you guys.